But now it's time for leading royal biographer Angela Levin. And the Montecito Moaners have had their multi-million-dollar Spotify deal ripped up after just one disappointing series of their Archetypes podcast. To make matters worse, a variety of big names now lining up to criticise the runaway royals, including Spotify podcast boss Bill Simmons and the global TV star Kelly Osbourne.
Wish I'd been involved in the Meghan and Harry leave Spotify negotiation. The fucking grifters. That's the podcast we should have launched with them.
I think Harry's a I do. I think he's a he's a whining, whinging, complaining, woe is me, I'm the only one that's ever had mental problems. Like, my life was so hard. Everybody's life is hard. Yeah, you were the prince of a goddamn country who dressed up as a Nazi, and now you're trying to come back as the Pope?
And my sources indicating that the calamitous couple's Netflix deal could be next for the chop. Rumours have been swirling that Meghan Markle may become the new face of luxury fashion brand Dior as a solution to clawing back her missing millions. But earlier today, the French fashion house insisted there have been no contract negotiations or even recent contact between Dior and the Duchess. So, Angela, with Harry and Meghan's lucrative personal projects failing, is the risk that they are going to have to be going back to the slamming of the royal family in order to make their big bucks?
Well, you would think so. We've got Meghan's memoirs coming out. And, I'm sure that
just what the world doesn't need.
Yes, I'm sure adding more and more poor me sort of things. The trouble is that, you know, she either goes for racism or she goes for being a victim. And you want to smack her bottom, really, because how on earth can she say that when she's got everything she wants? So she should forget the royal family if she doesn't like them. But I think this thing about making comments, and she has an extraordinary way of doing it, whereas she lands a bomb in the middle, but it's never really about her. It's just generalised. And she's there and everyone thinks, gosh, she's saying we're a racist. She's saying that she's got, you know, money. People don't
She's good at smearing, isn't she?
She is.
Without proof, because she didn't have any proof of the racism, Angela. But the thing is, what I think is really interesting is these brands are starting to realise actually being connected to that negativity is toxic. Because Dior, which has, in fairness, let them wear their clothes before, actually they have really quickly said, no, nothing to do with us, we don't want to work with them. Exactly.
People now realise that because they then say, when it's found out, like with the Queen, the late Queen, and she says that and she leaves it hanging and dangling there, so you never feel comfortable about, is she right, can it possibly be? And then when it's enough time in the public eye, they say, oh, no, I never said that, and she did. So it's just smearing it without actually, with not using butter, just being very unkind. And she does that, I think, on lots of different levels. And eventually people see it. I know you and I saw it much earlier on. You could read right through it. And the Americans thought we were being very unfair to her.
But they've realised now, haven't they?
But now they realise it wholly. And actually, if she's going down the road now, downwards rather than straight, they won't want to know, and big companies won't want her representing them, or Harry, indeed. You know, and I think that's quite right, because somebody is so negative as she is, and always, you know, she's never responsible for anything wrong. It's always everyone else's fault and everyone else's problem, and it's not her own. But she's the one who starts it and continues it, but never answers it, and I think that's really unpleasant.
How worrying is this grifter label going to be for them? Because Bill Simmons, I mean, this is a big name in Hollywood. But what's really interesting, it's not a word we use much in the UK. It means to be a small-scale swindler. But when I was speaking to all of my royal contacts in the courtiers when Harry and Meghan were working within the royal family over that period, they may not have used the word grifter, but they did use the word entitled. They did use the phrase scared of hard work. They did describe them as lazy and arrogant. So it's painting a picture, isn't it, of a couple that believe that they don't really have to work in order to live a very privileged life.
Well, Meghan was absolutely furious, if you remember, in South Africa, when she felt that, she really should be paid for every engagement she did. And
she was moaning, wasn't she? Oh, why are people not asking about how I am? When she's surrounded by some of the least privileged people in the world, poverty-stricken in a South African ghetto.
That was really terrible, but she couldn't see that. It just shows you that she has no vision. She can't see something in the wide way, and she just sees something, and then she has to triumph over them. So if somebody's not taking any notice of her, and there's, 30 poverty-stricken children, some with wounds that they've had from bombs underneath the ground and all those terrible things, and they get raped and very high level of rape for them.
But Angela Kelly wouldn't give me the tiara I wanted. I'm the victim. Please, you're not a victim.
Well, people
you're the luckiest woman on earth.
I'm not quite sure about that. I think, Harry's a handful, isn't he?
But come on, think of where she came from, Angela. This was a woman who was a D-list actor who was living in a palace and being handed a free tiara from the Queen for her wedding, and it still wasn't good enough. Nothing's good
king
enough.
Walking down the aisle with her as well. Yes.
But isn't that the point? Isn't that the point? I actually thought about this a lot because Spotify tried really hard. Remember, Spotify wanted this to work. They were really patient. They waited for 3 years.
One thing over 3 years.
They allowed them to hire something like 30 producers for this ridiculous little podcast, which is just very over the top anyway. But here's the issue. Spotify was never going to be able to do enough because no one can ever do enough for Harry and Meghan. This is why all of their staff end up leaving, because no one is good enough for them.
She never has enough money. She never has the smartest clothes. She never has enough jewels. That's why Harry's shrinking, because he doesn't know what to do. He's desperate to please her, poor boy. In that case, it is a poor boy.
Do you feel sorry for Harry here?
On and off, I do. I get very angry, but also very sorry because
you spent a lot of time with him when you were writing the biography, and he sat down with you, of course.
He wants to please her, and it's impossible to please somebody like that because they always want more. They're never happy enough with what they've got. We heard that they were going to move to a much larger house in a much better area. That never comes off. That's the other thing. They throw things at you about what they're going to do. It's all going to be so wonderful. And I think maybe Dior was one of those things where they were throwing that to show that how much she was wanted. But actually, in reality, there's not very much left, unless, as you said at the beginning of our chat, that it's actually being nasty about the royal family.
Well, that's it. That's my fear.
They're not taking any notice of them now, you see. And also people in America have told me that they don't want to listen to it. They believe in families. A lot of us do. And you don't go on and on and on. OK, you had a terrible time, you say something. That's the end. Draw a line on it, move on. But no, they go on and on and on and on, finding tiny little details. And I think that won't wash anymore. I'm sure it won't.
Relentless victims, aren't they?
Yes.
What do you make of this potential move to rebrand themselves to be closer to Diana? Some suggesting they could even try and take her name.
I think it's a load of nonsense, actually, I'm afraid. I think it's another thing to, when something's on the front pages about them, they come up with something else so that they can, divert the discussion. I think it's nonsense. What do you get people, Duchess of Diana? It's Diana too. I think it's a nonsense. I think somebody is just spreading something. Why would they do that? They're the same people. She's never seen Diana. She's never known her. She did lie flat and pray to her once when she went to visit her grave.
Apparently.
But that's about it. But Diana wouldn't have been good enough to her if she was still alive, actually. Diana would hate her because she was a great support. Oh, yes.
Diana would hate Meghan?
Yes, because she's very much supported the monarchy. She lived very near in Sandringham, and she used to go and have tea with the Queen. The family did, and she went along. And she said to both her sons, this is very important that we keep this going. I want good manners. I want you to like it. I want you to take part in it. But Harry's been told not to by Meghan, but actually...
Brilliant as ever. Brilliant as ever, Angela Levin. Thank you so much. Fascinating analysis.